I'm Jen Cumberworth, and I handle the education and community engagement here at the Hult Center. And today we are talking with our front of house manager, Louise Thomas-Vails. And we're going to get to learn a little bit more about Louise's work and how she came to be at this role at the Hult Center and answer any questions. So first, we're going to dive into the questions that I have, and then if you have any questions, feel free to enter them into the chat box or into the Q&A section, and we will get to those after we have after we run through the list here with Louise. So let's get started. Okay, so Louise, if you could just give us an overview of what does your, in normal times, what does your day-to-day work look like? What sort of projects do you get to do? Yeah, just an overview of what you do every day.
It's very hard to remember the normal times.
I know, it's been so long.
Let me think. Well, in normal times, we have what we call shows where people come to entertain patrons. And so typically my job is to supervise and train and teach about 100 ushers and schedule about 100 ushers that provide customer service and hospitality to the patrons who come to the Hult Center. So depending on the day of the week and whatnot, I do all those things, train, schedule, have meetings with the user groups to figure out what they need for front of house and what they'll need. Front of house meaning what the running times are of the show, meaning, you know, the first half of the show, then the intermission, then the second half of the show, what they require for late seating, if they want people to sit in the back, if they want people not to sit down at all, if they don't mind, what their photo policy is, if they allow people to take photos, if they don't, all the things that pertain to the audience. And so I have meetings along with the, you met Nathan and you spoke to Nathan, what he does. Yeah. He meets with we all meet together at the same time, but we all meet the user groups. Let's use the symphony as an example.
And I'm just going to interrupt real fast. Nathan and Jeff, for those that weren't on the virtual call, are our tech team. So Nathan is our assistant tech director. So just to clarify.
There you go. So the tech director, assistant tech director, the events manager, and myself, the house manager, meet with someone from a user group to find out what their needs are from us, from the facility. So I pay attention to what they need for their audience and how I can help them make their the audience experience for them perfect. So I find out those things, and sometimes they have meet and greets where patrons meet the artists, and we figure out how the logistics of that work, things like that. I can't even remember how this works. And then, so the important things are how long the show is, what time it starts, and those things are important to me so that I can schedule the ushers and explain to them what we're going to be, they are expected to do. Mm-hmm. So I gather all that information, schedule the ushers, and we have an online, this is online, scheduling software that I use to schedule them. And we do make the schedule every 2 weeks, or used to. And that seemed to be working very well. But that means we need all that information quite a bit ahead. So it's a constant turnover of needing information early in this process. And then.
So you mentioned that you have 100 ushers.
Mm-hmm.
So on any given show, because I know we have 2 different spaces, on average, like how many do you usually need for a show in one of like the concert hall or the theater?
In the soaring, which is the smaller hall, we only need about between 4 and 6 ushers.
Oh, okay.
And in the Silva, we need just 1 minute. This doesn't include parking because we're also in charge of the parking.
Oh, okay.
Which is selling and making sure we don't sell out in the parking garage. About 25 ushers for the Silva, which includes ticket takers. Ushers, I'm talking about people who would scan the tickets as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot. I mean, that's all the way full, you know, the patrons all the way to the upper balcony.
Yeah, and then that's a huge space for only like 25 people to cover and monitor.
Yeah.
And I know that you also mentioned that you do the training. So can you talk a little bit about the different types of trainings that an usher would go through?
Mm-hmm. So an usher needs to do the emergency training, which includes learning how to evacuate people from in all the different ways and all the different evacuation points that an emergency might take. So it's very kind of nuanced in that an emergency could come from different ways and different parts of the building, different kinds of emergencies. So we sort of drill on it. We drill on fire emergencies once a month, but we have an emergency training once a year. And we talk about it a lot because it's a little scary to think about an active shooter or a fire, or the thing that happens a lot is a medical emergency. And we're quite skilled at that because people have panic attacks or faint or something even more serious. And we have to call 911 quite often. And so we're actually quite good at that and stop everything and get everything ready and get the paramedics come and we're good at that part. But a step higher than that, you know, it's a little more involved. And so we train on that quite a bit. So that's a level of training. So because safety is the most important thing that the usher does to keep people safe in the building. The second most important thing and the thing that we do for training is hospitality and customer service. So that's the other thing that I myself train on it a lot, and I think about it a lot, and I figure out ways to convey how important making connections, human connections with people it is, and how I can convey that to my ushers. And it's a never-ending process to figure out ways to make that important. And we've got a great crew. We have, you know, about 800 years of usher experience in our crew because people don't quit. So
that's incredible.
It's really incredible. Yeah.
When you put it like that, the number, wow, that's really, really special to have people that have been here for a really long time. And they know the nuances of the building. And that is really cool.
It really is. And they, people who have actually been here from the very first day. We still have people who started in 1982, and I started in 1985.
That's amazing.
When I was a mere child. And so there is quite a bit of experience, but the thing I love to capture and I love to spread it's kind of like my mission anymore is the transcendental moment of making a connection with the person you have to serve, and the person that needs doesn't necessarily need your help, one who needs your help. There's so many ways to connect with people. And it's not just about the performance, it's about the whole experience of coming to the Hult Center. And in this time of COVID, I keep thinking, how do we remind people of that magic that we can do for them? So that's what I've been thinking about lately. How do we remind people that that's what happens here?
Yeah, because you're right. It's a whole feeling. It's not just the performance, it's the whole atmosphere. And that's so much of what you do is like, as a front of house manager, you're managing that experience from the time that they walk into the door till they leave.
At the time we say, and to say goodbye, thank you for coming, and we hope to see you next time.
Yeah.
And then we also train on de-escalation techniques for when something does go awry and someone is unhappy, and how to calm people down and listen to them and understand what's going on, and hear what they're saying, and understand what their issue is and try to resolve it without it getting more escalated and turning into a big deal. So, and that's another, it's simply another branch of hospitality, just listening to people, even if they're upset. So I've been thinking about it, and when I was younger, customer service wasn't, I didn't think of it as a calling. I just thought of it as part of my job here and other places I've worked. But as I've gotten older and as I've matured into this role, I see it as a calling, as a purpose, because each person I touch and each person I teach to touch people really, really matters. And it's a beautiful thing. It really matters. Just recently, I'm going to keep talking, blah, 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 blah.
No, this is perfect.
Okay.
And I've said this to you before, Louise, but it's really wonderful to hear you talk about this and the passion that you have for it, because it translates to your interactions with the customers. And I think that it makes a big difference when you have somebody that actually cares and is passionate about this work, for sure.
Yeah.
So keep going,
okay.
as you were saying.
Well, as we're not having performances, I've been loaning myself out to different agencies, and including the Emergency Operations Center at the city. And we've been handing out personal protection equipment to local businesses. So every Friday in the afternoon, I work with an ex-usher, and we give out PPE to local businesses. And so it's a chance to do a little customer service, a little hospitality, and we have such a blast, and we scream with delight, and we have so much fun. So I haven't seen people in so long, and we just have a blast. And we've actually gotten feedback already about how much fun people had and what great service they had. And it was just so rewarding to hear that, our extra exuberance, because we're so happy about what we're doing, that it mattered and that people liked it and weren't overwhelmed by we were so thrilled, So it's just been a blast to help people. And the other thing I've been helping with is assisting in kind of an organizational way with vaccines for first responders. And that's also been really fun. And also another cog in the wheel about something that's so important right now. And also the joy of hospitality and being sweet to people when it's nerve-wracking to get a vaccination, especially when you don't know how you're going to feel. And it's just been, again, fulfilling my calling, my purpose.
That's really amazing. I know the second part of this question was about special projects that you get to do. And it's really wonderful to hear about the special projects that you've gotten to do during this time that wouldn't normally be done at a performing arts center. So but that your skill set translates to so many other realms in that idea of hospitality, which is really special. So you talk a lot about the people. I mean, that's like what drives you, and it's your calling. what is the best part of your job? Is it people, like, what do you consider, like, what's the thing that's like, that's your favorite?
You know, it is having really wonderful experiences with patrons and also my staff, you know, connecting with my staff, having great, you know, just being here with them at night, having a wonderful time. That's what we miss, and we are all missing it. So we're currently, the way to connect with them now is we have Zoom calls, and not everybody gets on, but we, you know, once in a while get on, and it's been really awful not to be able to see them. We've had one socially distanced event when one of the ushers moved away. So we had a little party for her, but it's been really weird not to have them around. So those are the best things. It's, I'm actually an introvert. So
I wouldn't guess that.
yeah, I am. So I can get quite a bit of energy from making people connections, but when I go home, I really need to be by myself for quite a while to recharge. But I do get a lot of energy from being with people because it is so much fun, but I do get worn out, like, okay, that's enough.
Well, then that's a really important thing to think about, like in your job, when it is, you know, back to having shows again. I mean, it's kind of a lot. I mean, you're here most nights,
Yeah.
For every show. And so, well, the next question is, like, what is the most challenging part? Like, as an introvert, is that something that you find challenging, to be like, when we're in our busy seasons, constantly be around lots of people, even though that is also the best part, is being around
Yeah,
people?
it's funny. The most challenging thing is to have to talk with one of my staff about what they've done that wasn't really a great idea. You know, if it's really correctable, then it's not there's, you know, ways to say that this choice wasn't so great, here's a better choice. But if it's like a thing that I see that won't lead down a path of success, that's when it's really hard.
Yeah.
So that's what's rough.
What about, I know you did mention with your trainings and handling emergencies, I imagine that a lot of times that's handling emergency during a show. So you're trying not to like disrupt a show. That seems to me like that'd be so hard. Is that, or are you just like used to it?
Yeah, that's really not that hard. No, that part isn't that hard. And you have support, you know. Mm-hmm. The head ushers, that's like a step below me, who actually handle all the ushers and really handle the show, and I'm there for their support. Okay. So I don't. Is
that how like the structure is?
That's so it's the structure.
You head yeah. Okay.
And then hopefully there might be another manager to help, but I have support from above, and if I'm the manager on duty, then I kind of know what to do. But if it's out of my hands, and I'll go up the chain and figure out what the next step is. So I feel supported, and I feel like I'm supporting. So emergencies aren't that scary to me.
Well, that's good. It's important to have somebody like you that is level-headed. Can you also explain a little bit what that means? You mentioned being a manager on duty, so like what exactly that entails?
Yeah, so some adult has to be here to handle those things. Somebody's got to take care of whatever might happen. So a manager on duty we figure out who it is. It's, it's an assignment, but we all just pick and choose. Is here when patrons are here, so that if something does happen, there is someone, a chain of command kind of situation, that will, let's say the fire department has to be called, or an ambulance. Someone has to speak to those folks and deal with the situation if it gets escalated, and the manager on duty we'll have to contact the general manager or whatever to let them know what happened. So
Okay.
The manager on duty knows all the protocols, or should, or at least knows where to find out what to do, versus a supervisor who knows how to supervise the staff, but doesn't necessarily need to know all that other stuff. So it's mostly for emergencies.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be in charge.
Somebody has to be the grown-up.
Yeah. So I know a question that we like to ask, because we have students here, you know, wondering about going into these fields, and if you can give an idea of salary. So like, I know that there is usher work, head usher work, and then kind of like maybe what the structure is leading up to a front of house manager, and if you have an idea or like a frame of salary, like what somebody would make in this field.
Yeah, I kind of looked around on, I'm a member, and actually the whole Hult Center is a member of an organization called the International Association of Venue Managers. And jobs come up, and it depends on the location in the country what salaries are, but
right. Yeah.
Ushers currently make minimum wage or a little bit more depending on how long they've worked here. And you know, to be honest, I don't know what the steps are, and when they, I think it's annually when there's a chance to grow there.
Yeah.
And then a head usher, a person can become a head usher after 2 years of ushering experience. And that used to be a little more structured. Now, us head ushers and I discuss when we need another head usher, and we say, gee, and we sort of think about who would be good. And then we ask them, are you interested in this? And some people say, no, that's too much responsibility. And the head usher, oh, that's a good question. I don't remember what minimum wage is right now, but the head usher seems to make $2 or $3 more.
Okay.
And I don't, is minimum wage going up to 15, or did that not happen yet?
I don't know if it's actually happened yet.
I don't think it happened. So it's more, because it's quite a bit more responsibility.
Okay.
And then for me, I originally had a different job and then kind of progressed into this job. I looked at the wages in other parts of the country, and it looks like it can run from 35,000 to 75,000. I think it depends on the where you are in the country and where you are in your steps. So
yeah, it's really helpful to know that, and that it is a wide range, and it is dependent on your location. Is like a huge.
It is, and front of house manager means some different things in different venues.
Right.
So front of house manager sometimes in some places means head usher, to what I call a head usher. It means the person who's in charge of the staff that night. So the nomenclature doesn't match in every single venue. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting to know that it is different, and like you just kind of have to pay attention.
Yeah. So when I talk to colleagues, I have to kind of find out, so what does that mean, and who, and their structures are different a lot too. So
and with the IAVM, so the International Association of Venue Managers, are you in contact and able to kind of connect with other front of house managers or whatever other titles those folks may hold, so that you can?
Yeah, so particularly now during the COVID times, we've had a lot of connection, because people wanted to, the management at IAVM wanted to keep people connected. So we've had lots of meetings and town halls, we call them, and groups, front of house groups, back of house groups, all kinds of either bi-weekly or monthly meetings. So we all get to see each other, and we actually remember each other, because there are annual meetings where we physically go somewhere and see each other, but now we're seeing each other on Zoom. So we remember each other's faces and get together and talk, and it's another way to network. And then I was on a committee to put together a front of house guide on how to reopen. And then they came up with this guide. So this took months of editing and reworking and whatnot, but then they came up with the guide. And then they can add and subtract as COVID goes on, but it's all COVID related. And so I've been involved with IAVM from the start of COVID to pay attention, to take notes and listen. And on all the spectrums, I've been listening to front of house, back of house, and security, because these are the things that I feel interested in and that I can understand and report back. So, and I'm actually taking a conference right now, this week of IAVM about guest experience. So it's really fun.
That's really cool. I mean, it all kind of goes back to what you were saying, that the first number one thing is the safety of patrons, which I think, I know myself, I would have thought of hospitality, but of course it's safety, of course it is. And like when you're talking about this, it makes so much sense, but it's really interesting to hear about, because there's so much that goes into it that seems to be unseen.
Right.
And because they're, everything's all taken care of, and so you don't have to think about it.
Exactly. But now with COVID, venues should make it clear that the COVID safety protocols are in place, and reassure patrons that they're taking care of all those things. So a conference, one of the sessions I attended today was about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with that.
They suggested, this lady suggested that every venue should make clear and check to see if they are fulfilling those needs for patrons, or will fulfill them when they come back, and how are they communicating those needs to the patron.
And like for those that aren't familiar, the basic hierarchy needs, and it's been a little while since I've looked at it, but it's like basic needs. So like food and shelter at the bottom, like your health, all these basic needs that need to be taken care of before you can like enjoy things. Really.
Exactly.
It's like, and so that makes a lot of sense, tying it to a venue with, like, you want to make sure, especially with COVID and reopening, that these basic needs are taken care of, so you actually can have a pleasant experience.
Right. And
that's interesting.
Yeah. And to make sure that your employees know that and your patrons know that. Otherwise they won't know that it's okay to come back.
Yeah. That's fascinating, Louise. So, so because, there is the usher, head usher, front of house manager, how does one get started in this? If we have a high school student that's interested in this career, they can become an usher now, right?
They sure can, yeah. We lowered the age to 16, I think, so that high school folks can become ushers. And we're not that worried about experience. It's more, we hire for personality and spirit more than we do for experience. And so a resume, even though there's, that's sort of old hat, that's how we still in the city, that's how it's done. But if they have questions to answer, and if the answers feel like they're getting the spirit of the point is to be the most, have the most hospitality focus versus about you and your job, and I want this job because I need a job for the summer. That's the answer that won't get you a job. The kind of answer that would get you a job is, I'm interested in helping people, and I love to make connections, and interested in the arts. That's the kind of answer that would get you the job. So
That's really helpful to know. And
Yeah.
then with like a position like yours, uh, do you need like a college degree or is it based on experience?
Good question. I presume that either experience or a college degree would do the job. I think that there's no college degree in this job. So my degree was in linguistics, you know.
Oh,
Yeah,
now you know how to talk to people.
that's right. But which I think is a little it proves that I was able to go through the system of college, I think is, you know, whatever.
Right.
But I think customer service or, you know, managing people, having managed people in another job got me on the road to this position, I believe.
Well, so, okay, now we're kind of going into my next question, which is like, what is your personal pathway to this position? You mentioned you've been at the Hult Center since '85.
Yeah.
This is so cool. So yeah, can you kind of take us through from 1985?
Yes, I can.
what your pathway was to how you got to where you are now.
All right. So in 1985, so the Hult Center opened in 1982 while I was in high school. And I thought, wow, I sure would like to work there someday. But I didn't get jobs in high school. I was still going to high school. And then I was 19 when I applied for the job here and got it. And I thought, okay, that sounds great. And I think I was going to college. And I also got the job at my other job that I kept for thousands of years at the Bijou Art Cinemas. I got my job there selling concessions. And then I kept these jobs while I was going to college at the U of O. And I had 3 or 4 jobs, to be honest. So I kept working while I was going to school, and they were all part-time jobs and ways that I could manage, but I never got rid of these jobs. So I worked there and there and there and a couple other work study jobs. And then I whittled away at some of these jobs. And then I graduated college. I actually went to Europe for a little while, but I came back and my job was still available. So they didn't fire me.
What did you do over in Europe? Just travel?
Oh, yeah. I got a work study job in England, a work permit in England. So I had several jobs in England. One was at the British Film Institute. And yeah, so that was fun.
That's so cool. So were they all arts related when you were?
No, one was in a pub.
Okay.
And that was really the best one, probably. But the British Film Institute was great because I got to meet Tilda Swinton. Yeah. Wow. And several directors and things, because, you know, at parties and whatever. And, you know.
Rubbing elbows.
Yeah. That was really fun. And I don't know, it was just wonderful. And then I hitchhiked around Europe like you do. And so it just happened to be at a time when lots of my friends were in Europe and in Germany going to school. And so they had room on their floors for me to live for a minute. So I did that. Then I came back home and all my jobs were still waiting for me. So I just went straight back to work. And I was still going to school. I could just go back to school. So it took me a lot longer to graduate than other people, but so what? I spread it out so long because school cost so little then, you know, honestly, to go to college was like $300 a term. I know, a term. And I didn't have to take out loans until the very end. I had to start taking out loans. And then I thought, I better finish this. So, so I did. But then, by then I was a head usher here. And I was the manager at the Hult Center, manager at the Bijou, because people quit in a huff and got really mad at the guy who owned it. And I said, okay, I can do that. So I became the manager and I became a head usher. So I had kind of grown-up-y jobs for a little while. And for years, actually, years and years and years. And then at the Bijou, there's a long story about that, but I and some partners purchased the Bijou for a couple years, but that became kind of contentious and funny. So I felt that I didn't want to be there any longer. So I applied for a job here, a full-time position, which wasn't this exactly, but it was like an assistant to this position, plus some other crazy stuff. So I got that job, and then it grew into this when my supervisor retired, and had to do some other stuff. But
no, it's really amazing to hear. And like, I think when I've been doing these conversations with different people, it seems like so many people did not take a direct path to the position that they're in now. And I think that that's something that's really important to remember. And like, I know I remember when I was in high school being like, oh, this is what you have to do, and I have to have it all figured out, and you don't. And like, I think it's really quite special to hear about people's journeys to the positions that they're in, and like, and then you find that you might have a calling for something that you didn't even know
right, I didn't
existed,
realize.
or like,
Yeah. Oh yeah. When I was doing customer service more, like really constantly, I didn't make connections with people. I thought it was, I remember it being more transactional. And then I kind of learned as time went on from other people. Like one of my coworkers said that they touched, every time they gave change back, they touched the person's hand because they wanted to make a connection. And I went, oh, connection with people? Oh, I see. That makes sense. That's kind of human.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I learned from people like, I see, that's a thing you could do. That's a way to make this less, every day just giving people change and making sure you don't do it wrong, and, being in your head rather than in your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really interesting, because like, it's like, even if the customer doesn't necessarily recognize what it was, but making those, like you said, making it not transactional but human, that's really special.
Yeah. I'll never forget it. And I've told that guy both later that he told me that, and he said, I don't remember that at all.
But it stuck with you.
You changed my life.
So those are the questions that I have. And if anyone on the call has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or the Q&A, and I can get to them. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to do that. I'm curious, Louise, you talk about this moment that changed your life with like the hand holding. When you go to other places now and you go to venues, like, I'm sure that I imagine that the customer service experience that you have, like, you really pay attention to. Are there any things that you've like that exchange with the coins, like, that have stood out to you that you're like, oh, that's something I want to incorporate into my work? Or
always, yeah, always, because there's always something to learn, and people are so amazing. It's just that human connection. It's just looking people in the eye and having a little human, one extra step, human connection. And I look everywhere for it and figure something out and steal from everybody. And what's great about IAVM is they welcome stealing and they welcome borrowing, and they want to share everything they learn from everybody. So it's great.
Well, that's great. And it's good to have that group of people that, I mean, because the whole idea is to better the patient experience. So that,
yeah, and with everything, they're not stingy about things that they've worked on or stuff that they don't hold tight their product. They just share it with everybody.
That's really awesome. Well, Louise, I don't know if we have any other questions in here. I'm just double checking. But this was so wonderful. It was so great to hear your story. I didn't know that you spent that time in Europe, and your pathway. It's fascinating. So, and like I said before, it's always really wonderful to hear how passionate you are about your work, and it's so very important, and it's just really wonderful.
Here's a question.
I was wondering if you had any advice for anyone going into a job like yours.
Well, I would contact this organization, IAVM, because they want young people. They have scholarships, they have organizations, all kinds of ways to get people early into this industry, and they are so excited. So you might text Kayla the website. It's iavm.org, but they are so interested in raising people up and joining this organization. So they're awesome.
That's super helpful. And I am going to pop that in the chat box here.
And I just happened to I wanted to stay in Eugene simply because my parents were here throughout the, my childhood in 80s and 90s. And so I stayed in Eugene. I did have wanderlust, but I didn't go because I wanted to be around my parents. And then, you buy houses, get married a bunch of times, whatever. So stuff happens. But other people in these jobs move and advance, and they quickly advance to become general managers of different places, because this is kind of an upwardly mobile industry. So, yeah.
And then Kayla's other question is, do you see a demand for your type of job in the future?
Yes, because there'll never be, unless we go completely virtual with everything, which I don't see, because
I don't think so.
Because this virtual stuff isn't 100% working out. People have crave human interaction. And so it doesn't necessarily hospitality isn't stuck with venues. You need hospitality in hotels, mm-hmm. in airlines, in any place, that restaurants, any place where human beings need to be with other human beings, and be trained to interact and deal with adversity, and also treat people kindly. So this kind of job is everywhere. It just depends on how you call it.
Yeah, I mean, even just hearing about, like we talked about earlier, like you working with a vaccination clinic and stuff, so it's transferable.
Exactly.
So that's really awesome.
I'll tell another story since I still have 15 minutes.
Yeah, and we don't have to, we don't have to fill the full hour, but okay. I want to hear another story.
Well, this is my most inspiring story, and I might cry. So I was tasked with figuring out how to train. It was in between the time when I thought of customer service as transactional versus transformational, and I was trying to figure out how to train the ushers. And I was looking on IAVM. I was trying to get help, looking at all their posts and stuff. And somebody recommended this fellow named Brian Williams, not the guy on TV, but the guy with a Y. And so I emailed him, and he called me. So he's this fancy guy who normally charges $14,000 for to come speak to your organization. Mm-hmm. But he called me, and he spent a half an hour with me talking to me about customer service, and about what it really means, and how treating the honor it is to treat people like they're VIPs in your home. And then he sent me his book for free and signed it. Okay. And so he changed my life, because his talk, I'll never forget it. And his book, I bought 20 copies and made all the ushers read them, and made them fill out, answer questions. And what it did for me was understand that every usher needs the latitude to do whatever they need to do, if it's legal and ethical and moral, to do whatever it takes to get that customer satisfied with whatever disability they have, whatever needs they need to be met, and anticipate what their needs are. Figure out ahead of time what that person might need, and think about it all the time. Their whole job is to anticipate the needs of these people way ahead of time. What can you think of before these people get here that they're going to need? And that guy changed my life.
Amazing. Louise, you said it was Brian Williams. What was the book that he wrote?
Well, I have it right here. How to Serve a VIP, 30 Tips to Earn and Re-Earn Your Customer Loyalty.
Okay, that's really helpful. I mean, it's really, like we were talking about, it's unseen work, because people just feel good, that they don't think about everything that goes into it, and the having to plan and think ahead.
There he is.
Okay. Oh, and
there's Abby.
Yeah. Abby dropped the link in the chat as well. So,
and he has an email, list, and he's got a website, and he'll send out tips, and he's just the dreamiest, and he's so wonderful.
That's really helpful. It's good to know, like, these additional resources that people can check out, and how special to have somebody like that actually, like, call you on the phone. That's
I know. You just write to people and they call you. It's bizarre.
I know. I think that sometimes we just forget that we're all just people, and
and he just wanted to help, and he was just, that guy changed my life. And
amazing.
Anyway.
Well, Louise, this was so much fun. I loved hearing everything you had to say. It was so great to hear about everything. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And we're going to post this onto our YouTube page too, so people can do later viewing. But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Well, take care. Bye.
Bye.